I am the biggest advocate in the world for e-commerce. I've been doing this stuff since I was 17 years old. I shared all the things that I would do if I was starting in my last video, and now I'm going to play some devil's advocate and tell you why right now is the worst time to probably ever start a brand. Let's go. Everything that you've heard and seen about e-commerce starts to change when you realize that 97% of these brands are all doing the same two things. In the past 5 to 10 years, the barriers to entry to start e-commerce have never been lower. The biggest player in this game, we'll just call a spade, is Shopify. They made it so easy for merchants like you and I to go on there, start dropshipping, start a white label makeup brand, and just start selling products and doing millions of dollars in revenue. It's never been easier. You could not do this in 2003, folks. You couldn't. And overall, it's a pretty good model. Like I'd say most e-commerce brands have a 60 to 70% gross margin. Anything over 50% is honestly really healthy. And that's truly a beautiful business until it's not. These brands are all playing two games. The first game is the cheap cost of goods game, aka the cheap COGS game. Almost every brand is working with suppliers over in good old China. They're importing stuff rather via air or ship to the warehouses in Florida to fulfill orders, and what that means that you're building a strong relationship with your suppliers. But handshakes and thank yous only get you so far when there's a worldwide pandemic causing all these increases in shipping costs. In 2015, there was a port strike on the west coast of the US, and there was zero imports there for 3 months. Fast forward to 2016, there was so much excess capacity of ocean shipping. There was pretty much so much extra ships in circulation with not enough goods to be transported. That led to an all-time low of ocean freight, which cost around only $600 to ship a container. Just 5 years later, in 2021, that same container with those same goods for an e-commerce brand costs $20,000. And this is all from Types Fast on Twitter. He's the CEO over at Flexport. This screws up the world massively. And if you are a first-time founder trying to import your stuff from China, you're instantly at that much more of a loss because you're paying so much more for shipping, and your cost of goods are probably increased 5 or 10% just on like the material. But shipping itself, through the roof, and it's really hard if you have no customers. That's going to be, a big margin breaker right there. And the reason all this matters is because your goal as a business owner is to keep costs low, but we're at a time where you pretty much inevitably can't keep these costs low. And so what do? You pass those costs through to your customer. So now you're paying a lot more for shipping than you want to be paying. You want to say, how else can we increase margins? Well, we got to increase prices or charge more for our shipping labels, etc. And so that's what you do. But game 2 makes it even harder. A good example here, just to put this all into perspective before going into game 2, is e-commerce brand XYZ was founded in 2018, is a 100% D2C e-commerce brand. In 2020, their sales boomed. And for them, they did $5 million in revenue with 21% net margin. In 2021, sales were still good in Q1 and Q2, but something fell off for the bottom half of the year, and they probably did around $4.1 million in revenue with 13% net margins. So they're still profitable, but just not as good as last year. Continuing with this example, because this is how most brands are operating. Day 1 of launching, brand XYZ has spent time and tons of money on Facebook ads. Their initial business plan even started with their marketing strategy and how they basically plan to acquire X customers for X cost and find scale through that. And for a long time in e-commerce, that worked. You factored in marketing to your percentages of revenue, and if it made sense, you spent, you scaled, you got results, and it was beautiful, and you knew exactly what was working. But around that second half of 2021, where their revenues fell off, and many other companies as well, iOS 14.5, which I'm not going to explain in this video, but essentially it gave consumers the right to share how much data they want to give to Facebook. And so I still think Facebook's getting a lot of that data, but it's nowhere near as much because 90% plus of people did not allow that update to actually go through and track them anymore. And so with that, it now costs that brand more money to acquire a customer on Facebook, aka their CAC rises. So they used to pay $22 to acquire a customer. Now they're probably paying $30 plus. And you might think, okay, that's $7, not a big deal. But if you do that at scale, you're me burning a lot more money. And don't forget, game number 1, your cost of goods sold just to import products and everything is already so much higher. So now you're paying more for shipping, more for your product, and more to acquire a customer. That's why more brands are doing TikTok. And if you have interest in us helping you with TikTok, there's a form below that you should fill out. But back to my statement, Facebook has been the gold mine for e-commerce forever, but now it's broken. Attribution is broken. There's softwares like Hyros and Triple Whale. Let me just tell you one-to-one, they don't work as well as you might think. This has nothing to do with the founders or who they are or what their softwares actually do. It's just because no matter how many tracking layers you have on top, you're never going to have that first party data sent back to Facebook. So you might be able to see that, oh, this creative actually has 81 conversions and not 57 like Facebook thinks, but Facebook's never going to see that data from Triple Whale or from Hyros or from anybody. And so you might be able to see it and scale your ads, great, but Facebook only sees those 57 conversions and not the 81 that Triple Whale caught, no matter what. Like, it's just not getting fed back to Facebook. And so that's a high level example of why the ad tracking is not working. Your attribution sucks. and your CACs are rising, and it's not going to be fixed. It's never going to be like 2018 and 2019 again. And I know I'm ranting, even though I just said everything else in my previous video, which you should definitely check out. But folks, you're paying more for shipping, you're paying more for customers. How are you going to make money? Well, there is TikTok, and so that is one way. If you're a founder watching this that already has an e-commerce brand and maybe your revenue is plateauing, you're breaking even or making some margins, there's still ways for you to survive. And don't get me wrong, there's still ways for you to launch. You can get around your cost of goods sold issue by importing from somewhere else, maybe like India or whatever. Like that's kind of just one way to curb this if you have a unique product. But for most stuff, it's from China, and that's not, you can't just change that overnight. And so I think at least for the next 1 or 2 more years, we're going to have these crazy inflated shipping prices. And shipping makes the world go round in e-commerce. And so when you make it more expensive for merchants to import stuff, that's harder. And then when you make it more expensive for e-commerce merchants to acquire customers on Facebook, like it's just really damn hard. So if you were considering starting an e-commerce brand, are you still thinking about it? If so, congrats, you passed the test. This is all a test. And during these downtimes, you probably should launch an e-commerce brand. I'm just playing devil's advocate and warning you that you're going to be paying more for shipping and more for customers. But if you can figure out how to import for cheaper or just ride it out for 2 more years, and if you can figure out how to go viral on TikTok, when all this is cleaned up and said and done, you're going to be prospering on your way to being, a brand with a 7, 8, 9 figure run rate, no problem. That's where my head's at. Let me know where yours is. And no matter what the world throws at you, if you believe in your brand, you believe in your product, you'll succeed. So don't worry about all this BS I just said. Launch your business. If you didn't like the video so much and you think I'm an asshole, sure, give me a thumbs down if you really want. But we have a TikTok form linked below. And if you're trying to take your brand to the next level and want to go viral and get some free revenue, and you don't want to be so reliant on Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg's business for your customers, fill it out. We'll be in touch if we think you're a good fit. And that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.